Welcome to the world of Disney Lorcana. This game is for everyone, whether you're new to trading card games, a veteran player, or a collector. You'll discover another world of trading, playing, and of course fun. In this game, you'll take on the role of an Illumineer with the power to wield magical ink to summon glimmers of Disney characters. Some of these glimmers will appear as familiar friends, while others take new and fantastic forms. Together with your team of glimmers, you will race against other Illumineers to collect lore, and the first player to reach 20 lore wins. Okay, let's get you playing. You've taken your first step to becoming an Illumineer. Before we get started, let's talk briefly about the type of game Lorcana is. You may have heard a lot about trading card games, or TCGs. Maybe you've seen people playing them, or have noticed the displays in the store. There's a lot of information out there, and it can feel overwhelming. So we've separated the rules out into several short videos, so you can go back to any section you like whenever you want. It might take you a game or two to learn the rules, and that's completely normal. Take all the time you need. The first thing to understand about trading card games is that each player makes their own deck before the game starts, using the cards in their collection. You can play the same deck every time, or make changes to it. This is one of the most fun aspects of trading card games. You get to decide what character glimmers you play with, what strategies you want to use, and how you want to play the game. Also, once you learn the basic rules, everything else you need to know is right there on the cards, and the cards are allowed to break the rules. Now, for your first games, don't worry about building your deck just yet. There are several different starter decks you can choose from, which are pre-built to be fun right out of the box. Each player will need a deck. Alright, so let's learn Lorcana. Each player will need their own 60-card deck to play with. To begin the game, players shuffle their decks and set them off to the side. They then draw 7 cards. You can look at your cards, but you can't look at your opponent's. Each player will also need a way to keep track of their lore. You can use the lore tracker from the starter decks, or any other method you wish, as long as it is clearly visible to all players. Place some damage counters nearby so you can reach them easily. Finally, randomly decide who is going first. You can flip a coin, play rock, paper, scissors, or any other way to randomly choose a player. Now, you're ready to start the game. Turning your card sideways is a simple way to show that you've used the card for the turn. Most cards can only be used for an effect once per turn. In Lorcana, you'll turn the card sideways to show that it's been used. We call this exerting the card. An exerted card can't be used again until it is turned upright again, which is called readying the card. At the start of each of your turns, you'll ready all of your cards, so you'll be able to exert them again in the future. Magical ink is what powers Lorcana and is what you'll use to put your cards into play. Many cards can be used as magical ink. Those cards have a gold swirl around the number in the top left of the card, like this. Cards without that gold swirl can't be used as magical ink. To use a card as ink, take it from your hand and show it to your opponent. Then, place it face down in front of you for the rest of the game. You now have 1 ink in your inkwell. It doesn't matter what was on the front of the card. Once it is in your inkwell, it counts as 1 ink. Once you put a card in your inkwell, you don't get it back for the rest of the game. That number in the top left part of each card tells you how much ink you need to exert in order to play that card. This is where your ink comes in. Once per turn, you can add 1 more card to your inkwell, increasing your power by allowing you to play more expensive cards. So now that you know how to use your cards as ink, let's talk about the different cards you can play. They come in 3 varieties: characters, items, and actions. Characters are the easiest to spot because they're the only cards that have these numbers on the right side. We'll talk about these a little later. Character cards are the main way to get lore, so you'll want a lot of them in your deck. When you play a character, place the card on the table above your inkwell. How characters work is covered in a later video, but for now, just know that characters can't do anything on the turn they're played. You have to wait until your next turn to use them. It can be helpful to place new characters a little closer to your inkwell than your other characters, so you'll remember that. Items are also easy to spot, since they have these nice gold frames around the art. Once you play an item card, it stays on the table and gives you some kind of bonus or advantage. Unlike characters, you can use items on the same turn you played them. That leaves actions. These are a one-and-done type of card. When you play an action card, you do what it says on the card and then put it into your discard pile. You'll always begin your turn in the same way. Ready, set, draw. First, ready all of your cards on the table. That means turning them upright. Second, set conditions for the turn. If you played any characters on your last turn, move them up to be with your items and other characters. You'll be able to use them this turn. Also, check for any effects that happen at the start of your turn. And third, draw the top card of your deck and add it to your hand. The player taking the very first turn of the game skips this step. It's a way of making up for the slight advantage they get by going first. After that, you've got some options, all of which will be covered in greater detail later on. You can play cards from your hand, put a card into your inkwell, quest with your characters, challenge opposing characters, or use the abilities of the cards you have in play. Once you've done everything you want to do during your turn, let your opponent know so they can start their turn. Character cards represent the glimmers of Disney characters who will help you in your race for 20 lore. When you put a character into play, they can't do anything that turn. On your next turn, you'll have a few options on what you can do with them. The first option is called questing, and it's the best way to gain lore. To quest with one of your characters, exert them. You then get lore equal to the number of lore symbols on the card. You can quest with your characters turn after turn, adding their lore to your total. The first player to reach 20 lore wins. Your opponent is also racing towards victory, so at some point you may need to slow them down. To do this, you'll need to use your characters in another way. Challenging is something a character can do instead of questing. Characters always challenge other characters, not a player. To challenge, exert your character and choose an opposing character that's also exerted to challenge. Ready characters are safe and can't be challenged. Next, the two characters will deal damage to each other equal to their strength. Strength is the number in this icon. Place damage counters on both characters to show the damage they've taken. This damage happens at the same time. Aurora deals 2 damage, and Maleficent deals 1 damage. You probably noticed the second number in the icon next to strength. That's called willpower. When the amount of damage on a character is as much as their willpower, the character is banished, and the card goes into its player's discard pile. Bye, Maleficent! So what happens to Aurora? The damage she took in the challenge wasn't enough to banish her, so she stays in play. The damage stays on her, though. If she takes any more, she'll be banished too. It's important to remember that you don't have to quest or challenge with your character if you don't want to. You can simply leave them ready, so they're safe from being challenged during your opponent's turn. Another thing you can do on your turn is use the abilities of cards you have in play. Abilities tell you how your cards can break the rules, so they're one of the reasons TCGs are so fun to play. You'll see them on both character and item cards. Take Beast's Mirror, for example. It's an item, so you now know that you play it by exerting 2 cards in your inkwell, and that it stays in play in front of you. But then what? Beast's Mirror has an ability named Show Me that reads, if you have no cards in your hand, draw a card. The cost to use this ability is here, right after its name. Show Me's cost has the exert symbol and the 3 ink symbol. That means each time you want to use this ability, you need to exert Beast's Mirror and 3 of the cards in your inkwell. And because this ability is on an item, you can use it the same turn you play the mirror. Remember, characters can't do anything the turn you play them, so you can't use their abilities until your next turn. Some abilities have costs besides exerting or paying ink. Costs like that are explained on the cards, so you'll always know what you need to do to use the ability. So now that you've got the basics, let's tie it all together. On your turn, you'll start with Ready, Set, Draw. After that, you can do any of these in any order you want. Put cards into play. Put a card face down into your inkwell. Quest with your characters to gain lore. Challenge opposing characters to slow your opponent down. Use abilities of cards you have in play. When you've done everything you wanted to do, tell the next player to take their turn. Keep playing until one of you reaches 20 lore, winning the game. You've now got the basic information you need to play your first games of Lorcana. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Team Lorcana on any of our social networks. Thanks for watching, and welcome to the world of Lorcana.